In this class, we are discussing about the development of GIT, that is your gastrointestinal tract. So, what is the first part we have already discussed? Foldings of the embryo, right? So, how many types of foldings are there? Two types. What are those? Cranio-caudal foldings, which is also known as head and toe foldings. The another one is lateral or lateral foldings. How the cranio-caudal folding takes place? From which part your gastrointestinal tract is derived? From primitive gut, right? From the primitive gut, your gastrointestinal tract will develop. In which week? In which week we can see the development of your GIT? Third week? Sure? It's in the fourth week. Okay. So how the cranio-caudal folding takes place and what are the types of section we have seen in the last class? Coronal and sagittal section. We have studied the cranio-caudal folding in which section? Sagittal or coronal? In which section we studied the cranio-caudal foldings? Sagittal section. So tell me the process how the foldings takes place. What is the reason behind folding of the embryo or why the foldings takes place? Increase in the cell, that is proliferation of cells takes place in your amniotic cavity. That increases the size of your amniotic cavity, leads to the folding at the cranial and also at the caudal end. Okay. What are the important structures we see in the cranio-caudal foldings? What are the structures we see in the cranio-caudal foldings? At the cranial end we have there are three important structures on both cranial end and caudal end, right? So what are the structures we see in the cranial end? Okay. The first structure we have is septum, transversum. Next we have pericardial cavity or pericardial region. Next followed by buccopharyngeal membrane. Okay. On the caudal end, what are the structures we have? Allantois, which is the extension from your yolk sac, and the other two structures. What are the other two structures we see in the caudal end? Cloacal membrane and he mentioned allantois. The other one structure is connecting stalk. Okay. Where we can see the presence of your cloacal membrane and buccopharyngeal membrane? Stomodium and proctodium. Okay, fine. Any other answers? We can see the presence of buccopharyngeal membrane and cloacal membrane where the mesoderm is absent and your ectoderm and endoderm is connecting with each other. Okay. What is the structure developed from your septum transversum? Diaphragm. And in the pericardial region, we can see the development of heart. Okay. What happens after once the foldings takes place? What happens once the foldings takes place? Primitive gut. Formation of primitive gut takes place in the yolk sac region. Okay. And what is the remnant of yolk sac? What is the remnant of yolk sac? The remnant of yolk sac is vitalo-intestinal duct, which is one more elongation from your yolk sac region after the formation of foldings or after the foldings takes place. So next, what happens to your primitive gut? Three parts are formed. What are those? Hindgut. On what basis we are dividing them? Okay. On what basis we are dividing the foregut, midgut and hindgut regions? Okay, right. So your vitelline duct is opening into which gut? Into midgut. Okay. What about the allantois? Into the hindgut. What about the blood supply? Blood supply to your gut region? Okay, and these are the branches of dorsal aorta, which is present on the posterior side of the abdomen region. Okay. What about the derivatives of your gut tube? Derivatives of gut. Derivative of your foregut, midgut and hindgut. From the foregut we have mouth, tongue, okay, esophagus, stomach, respiratory. What about the midgut? What about the midgut? Okay. Derivatives of hindgut. Where are you going? What you are doing when you got 20 minutes break? Huh? Come back, go to your place. What about the derivatives of hindgut? Colon, rectum and upper part of your anal canal. Okay. We will study the lateral folding in this class. Okay. Any idea how the lateral foldings takes place? This is how the coronal section of your developing embryo will look. Sorry? It's not visible. Okay. Okay, this is the coronal section of your developing embryo. On upper part we have amniotic cavity and in the lower part we have yolk sac. In between we have intraembryonic mesoderm. This part we have already seen in our last class. We will see how the lateral foldings takes place from this. Lateral folding means the folding which happens at the right and left end of the developing embryo. Okay, your amniotic cavity will get increase in the size and the foldings takes place at the right and left end which starts moving towards the midpoint or mid region. Fine. This is your amniotic cavity. Okay. Now this part is your intraembryonic mesoderm, and this is vertebrate, and this one is your primitive gut. Okay. Remember, your cranio-caudal folding and lateral folding takes place simultaneously. It's not like your cranio-caudal folding will happen first. Once that is finished, your lateral folding will start. No, it's not like that. The cranio-caudal folding, which I explained in the previous class, and the lateral folding, which I am explaining now, is happening at the same time in your developing embryo. Okay. We have amniotic cavity, and this part is your intraembryonic mesoderm. We have already seen the primitive gut formation. Okay, and this is vertebrate. This part is the remnant of your yolk sac. What is the remnant of yolk sac? Vitalo-intestinal duct. Okay, this is your vitalo-intestinal duct. Remember, I mentioned this is the intraembryonic mesoderm. So what are the folding is happening in this direction? Okay, both this right and left end. Consider this as a right side and this as a left side. Both the sides are moving towards the midpoint. Fine. So what are the structures we see in the intraembryonic mesoderm in this region? This is your intraembryonic mesoderm. What are the structures we see here? In previous class itself I have mentioned. What are the structures we see in the intraembryonic mesoderm? Neural tube, notochord, very good. Here we have neural tube and notochord is present below your this is notochord. Any other structures? Neural crest cell, where we can see the neural crest cells? Where we can see the presence of neural crest cells. If you just point like this, I will not get it. You have to say where. On either side of the neural tube. Okay. What are the other structures we see in the intraembryonic mesoderm region? Or what are the parts of intraembryonic mesoderm? How many parts are there? Of the intraembryonic mesoderm, how many parts are there? Before discussing the development of urogenital system, I have mentioned about this. Paraaxial mesoderm. Okay, there are three parts in your intraembryonic mesoderm. Okay, it is paraaxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral plate mesoderm. It is present next to your notochord region. So first I can say this is paraaxial. This is paraaxial. This is intermediate mesoderm, and this part is lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, these are the three parts which we can see in the intraembryonic mesoderm. From the intermediate mesoderm, your urogenital system will develop. Remember this point. Next to this, what we have? This entire structure is covered by extraembryonic mesoderm, right? So here this is your extraembryonic mesoderm. What is the structure we can see inside the extraembryonic mesoderm? It is discussed in your general anatomy part. Extraembryonic coelom. Remember, we have extraembryonic mesoderm. Inside the extraembryonic mesoderm, we have coelom part. Okay. Now, in the lateral plate mesoderm region, we can see the presence of small cavities. Ultimately, these small cavities will together open into your extraembryonic coelom part. So now we term it as intraembryonic coelom. First, in the lateral plate mesoderm, a small cavity will start appearing. Ultimately, all these small cavity will combine together and open into your extraembryonic coelom part. So now this part is called intraembryonic coelom. Any doubts in this? No? First, we have seen the folding of your amniotic cavity, then we have intraembryonic mesoderm. In this coronal section, we can see vertebrae followed by primitive gut. Formation of primitive gut takes place in the cranio-caudal section, and then we have the remnant of yolk sac, that is vitalo-intestinal duct. So now in this intraembryonic membrane, we have paraaxial, intermediate and lateral plate mesoderm. In the lateral plate mesoderm, now we have a structure called intraembryonic coelom, which is opening into your extraembryonic coelom. Now this part, which is present above and below your intraembryonic coelom, is very important. What is this called? What are these structures called? Above part is called somatopleuric membrane, and the lower part is called splanchnopluric membrane. This is splanchnopluric membrane. So, is it clear how your somatopleuric and splanchnopluric membrane will develop in the embryo? We have intraembryonic coelom in the lateral plate mesoderm. The above part in your intraembryonic coelom is called somatopleuric and the below part is called splanchnopluric membrane. So now your splanchnopluric will open into, remember this is just intraembryonic mesoderm. On above part we have amniotic cavity and below part we have yolk sac. Okay. So your somatopleuric is going to open into your or comes in contact with your yolk sac, and your somatopleuric will comes in contact with your amniotic cavity. Is it clear? Any doubts? Any doubts in this? No. So now look at this structure. This is your intraembryonic mesoderm. All these structures what I have shown you is present in this region. Now we have got somatopleuric and splanchnopluric membrane. Somatopleuric will be in contact with your amniotic cavity. So if you see this layer, it is in contact with your amniotic cavity. So this is somatopleuric membrane. Okay. Now if you see this layer, it is in contact with your yolk sac. So this is splanchnopluric membrane. Is it clear? The membrane which is in contact with amniotic cavity is somatopleuric. The membrane which is contact with your yolk sac is called splanchnopluric membrane. Any doubts in this? No doubts? Others? Any doubts? Shall I rub? Shall I clean it? And remember, this point is your intermediate mesoderm. Okay, that point is the intermediate mesoderm. Where? What? What's your roll number? 120. You will be marked for today's class. Go and sit. So now this is how the lateral foldings will look. Okay. From this point I already mentioned the right and left end are moving towards this direction to meet each other. Now here they have meet with each other. This is the meeting point. Okay, this is your amniotic cavity and this layer is your somatopleuric membrane, the one which is in contact with the primitive gut, that is a part of yolk sac, that is splanchnopluric pleuric membrane, okay, and this is vertebrae and this is your primitive gut. Eventually the remnant of your yolk sac will disappear during the process of development. So this is how after your embryo, after the lateral folding, your embryo will look. Now your entire embryo is free to float inside your amniotic cavity, and this part will develop into your umbilicus. Okay. Any doubts in this? So this is the meeting point of your amniotic cavity, which was moving in the right and left direction towards each other, and this meeting point will develop into your future umbilicus. We have somatopleuric membrane, splanchnopluric membrane, and here we have the primitive gut. In the process of development, your remnant of yolk sac, that is vitalo-intestinal duct, will disappear. Okay, this is how the lateral folding takes place. Any doubts in this? Finished, everyone? So what is the significance of lateral folding?
When the spaces in the lateral region fuse together to form the embryo, we see.
Okay. Okay, what are the changes we can see after the lateral folding takes place? Next, how the somatopleuric and splanchnopluric membranes or layers are formed. How the somatopleuric and splanchnopluric membranes are formed. How the somatopleuric and splanchnopluric membranes are formed.
In the lateral mesoderm cavities are formed, and divide the lateral mesoderm.
We divide it into two parts. Above we have somatopleuric membrane, below we have splanchnopluric membrane. Okay, and the somatopleuric membrane will be in contact with your amniotic cavity. Splanchnopluric membrane will be in contact with your yolk sac. At the end of the folding, we have amniotic cavity in a spherical manner. Inside that, your embryo will be floating, and we have the umbilicus. The other structure is primitive gut. Your remnant of yolk sac, that is vitalo-intestinal duct, will disappear. Is it clear? Any doubts in this? Any doubts in lateral folding and cranio-caudal folding? Any doubts, class? No doubts? So what are the derivatives of foregut, midgut and hindgut? And how these arteries will reach into your gut region? Any idea about mesentery? What is mesentery? So what is mesentery? Where you heard that word before? In folding of peritoneum. Okay, your mesentery is the folding of peritoneum, which holds or attaches your small intestine, stomach and many other abdominal organs into the posterior abdominal wall. Okay, so peritoneum, mesentery is a fold of peritoneum which helps to your abdominal organs to come in contact with the posterior abdominal wall. Okay, even these arteries will run through your mesentery to reach the gut region. Okay. Okay. Listen. This is your gut tube, okay? This is the cranial end and this is the caudal end. This is your and this is caudal end. Now imagine this is your posterior abdominal wall. So this is your anterior part. This is stomach. This is intestine part. And this is the caudal end. Okay. So now the green structure what you are seeing here is your mesentery. That is the fold of the peritoneums. Okay. So we have gut tube. On the other end we have posterior abdominal wall. From the posterior abdominal wall we can see the foldings of peritoneum, that is your mesentery. And this side we have anterior part, this is stomach and this is intestine part. Okay. So now the mesentery at different level will be called by different name. Any idea? The mesentery present in different region, that is in the stomach part and in the intestinal part and also in the caudal end region. It is called by different names. What are those? Stomach part? Greater omentum and lesser omentum. Okay. Which part is mesocolon? Colon part, okay. The intestinal part is mesentery. Okay. Any other answers? Any other answers? Okay. We have 3 parts or 3 levels and we name it in different form. Okay. The first one is mesogastrium, that is present in the stomach region. Next one is mesentery proper, that is present in the intestinal region, and the last one is mesocolon, that is at the caudal end part. Okay. So This is mesogastrium and this is mesentery proper, and the last one is mesocolon. That greater omentum, lesser omentum, what you said is derivative of this mesentery. Okay, we have mesentery, that is the folds of peritoneum that connects your abdominal organs into the posterior abdominal wall. In different regions or in the different level, we name it with a different names. The first part, that is at the level of stomach, we call it as mesogastrium, and in the intestine region we call it as mesentery proper. The last part is that means at the caudal end is mesocolon. In mesogastrium we have two regions, ventral mesogastrium and dorsal mesogastrium. This part is dorsal mesogastrium and this is ventral mesogastrium. Okay. So this mesogastrium, mesentery proper and mesocolon will give derivatives, that means it gives rise to different parts in our body. Okay. Anterior part of the ventral mesogastrium, that the anterior part is this one. This structure what you are seeing here is liver. Okay. Area which is present anterior to liver is called anterior ventral mesogastrium and this is posterior ventral mesogastrium. Is it clear, everyone? In the stomach region we have dorsal mesogastrium and ventral mesogastrium. Again in the ventral mesogastrium we have two parts, anterior and posterior, based on the presence of liver. Okay. The anterior mesogastrium region will give rise to ligaments of the liver. These are the derivatives of your mesentery. Ligaments of liver, that is right and left triangular ligaments, superior and inferior coronary ligaments. The last one is falciform ligaments. How many ligaments are there in liver? Gross part is finished, right? Liver. How many ligaments are there? How many ligaments are there? Two ligaments and false ligament. Okay, true ligament and false ligament. Forget about true ligament, false ligament. Tell me how many ligaments will study in liver? 3? Only 3, sure? Only these 3 or any other points? Only these 3. Any other answers? 5 ligaments. 5 ligaments. Okay, here I have mentioned 3. Right and left triangular ligaments, superior and inferior coronary ligaments, falciform ligaments. So other 2 are ligamentum villosum, ligamentum teres. Okay, so how those 2 ligaments are formed? Ligamentum teres is formed by remnant of left umbilical vein. Okay, the another one, is he right? Yes, okay. Ligamentum lateral ductus venosus. So the another one ligament is the remnant of ductus venosus. Oh, fine. So from the anterior part of the ventral mesogastrium, we have right and left triangular ligaments followed by superior and inferior coronary ligaments and falciform ligaments. These are the three ligaments of our liver. Okay. In the posterior part of ventral mesogastrium, it will give lesser omentum. This part, this whole part will turn into lesser omentum. Okay, ligaments. Next we have dorsal mesogastrium. We have gastrosplenic, lino-renal ligament, gastrophrenic ligament and greater omentum. Now tell me where we can see all these four ligaments in that structure. And what is this? Spleen. Okay. The first one is gastrosplenic ligament. Where we can see the gastrosplenic ligament? Between the stomach and the spleen. So this part will turn into gastrosplenic ligament. Next we have lino-renal ligament. Where we can see the lino-renal ligament? Renal. Between the spleen and kidney. Okay, fine. Now I'll say it is between the spleen and your posterior abdominal wall in this figure or diagram. Okay. So this is your lino-renal ligament. Next we have gastrophrenic ligament. Where we can see the gastrophrenic ligament? Stomach, diaphragm. This is your diaphragm. Okay. So this is gastrophrenic ligament. The last one is greater omentum. Where we can see the greater omentum? Greater curvature. So can I say this is the greater curvature of your stomach? So here we can see the greater omentum. So these are the derivatives we see from the dorsal mesogastrium. Any doubts? Any doubts in this? So what happens to your mesentery proper and mesocolon? What is going to happen for your mesentery proper and mesocolon? Mesentery proper, a portion suspending the duodenum gets fused with the posterior abdominal wall. Next we have mesocolon, which is absent in ascending colon, descending colon and also in the rectum. It gets absorbed into your posterior abdominal wall. It remains in the region of transverse colon, which is known as transverse mesocolon, and it also remains in the region of your sigmoid colon and appendix. It is called as sigmoid mesocolon and mesoappendix respectively. Okay. So your mesocolon will generally get absorbed into your posterior abdominal wall region, but it will remain in the transverse colon, sigmoid colon and in the appendix region. It is called as transverse mesocolon, sigmoid mesocolon and mesoappendix respectively. Okay. What about this? Mesentery proper, a portion suspending the duodenum gets fused with the posterior abdominal wall. What do you mean by that? So the portion of mesentery which was attached to your duodenum will get absorbed or it will get fused into your posterior abdominal wall. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts in this? Okay. So what is mesentery? It is the folding of peritoneum that connects your abdominal organs into the posterior abdominal wall. How many types of mesenteries are there, or on what basis we are dividing them? Based on the region it is present in our body. Around the stomach we call it as mesogastrium. In the intestinal region we call it as mesentery proper, and at the caudal end we call it as mesocolon. And in the mesogastrium we have two parts, that is ventral front part and the back part is dorsal mesogastrium. Again in the ventral part we have anterior part and posterior part. This is anterior part and this is posterior part that we divided based on the position of the liver. From the anterior part we can see the ligaments of liver, that is the derivative of your anterior part. What are the ligaments name? Anterior and posterior. Falciform ligament, triangular ligament, superior and inferior. Okay, fine. From the posterior part we can see the derivative or the development of lesser omentum. Okay. Next we have dorsal mesogastrium. We have four important derivatives. What are those? The one which connects your stomach and spleen is called gastrosplenic ligament. The one which connects your spleen to the posterior abdominal part is called lienorenal ligament. And the one that connects your stomach to your diaphragm region is gastrophrenic ligament. The last one is greater omentum, that is present in the greater curvature region of the stomach. Okay. Next we have mesentery proper. What happens to the mesentery proper? A portion of the mesentery that was in contact with your duodenum will get fused to your posterior abdominal wall. Okay. This notes what I have added, no, this is not from the textbook. Okay. In the next class I will add points from the textbook. Again we will discuss about this, only the mesentery proper part. So don't take this one, don't note it down. You will get the textbook points in the next session. And the last remaining part is mesocolon. What is going to happen in the mesocolon? Where we can see the presence of mesocolon? In the sigmoid colon region and in the transverse colon region and in the appendix part. That is called mesoappendix. Where it is absent? Ascending colon, descending colon, and also in the rectum region. So is it clear for everyone? Any doubts in the mesentery? Any doubts? So in the development of GIT, until now we have discussed cranio-caudal folding, lateral folding and mesentery, and also the derivatives of mesentery. All these four parts are just the introduction to your development of GIT. Okay. In the next class we will start with the development of esophagus and also the stomach.